When I say Vietnamese food, what comes to mind? Usually pho, banh mi, and spring rolls. But today, I want to show you a different dish that may not be as popular as other dishes you've heard. It's called shaking beef in English, or in Vietnamese, Bo Luc Lac. Let me show you how to make it. Alright, I'm starting out with the bell pepper. I like using a red one specifically because I feel like it pops out a lot more in this dish than a green one would or an orange one. But you can go ahead and use those if you want. I'm just going to chop them up into about 1-inch pieces. For my onions, I'm going to go ahead and dice them up into 1-inch pieces, the same size as my bell pepper. The reason why I do that is because I think it'll just make a more pleasant eating experience. Now garlic, I would argue that is not optional in this dish, but you know, if you don't like garlic, you hate garlic or whatever, you can omit it. I'm going for 4 cloves of garlic, of course crushed, of course chopped, and I'm going for a fine mince here. For the steak, I have a ribeye here, about 12 ounces, give or take a few. And all I'm gonna do is chop it up into 1-inch cubes. One thing to keep in mind is that you don't have to use ribeye. You can go ahead and use New York strip. I've actually seen recipes and some restaurants use filet mignon. You can go ahead and use that too. I just particularly don't like using filet mignon, especially for something like this. Any other cut would work as well, as long as it's a tender cut and as long as it's a cut that you would eat as a steak. And that's what you should use. Now for the marinade, I'm gonna go in with about a 1/4 cup of soy sauce. And then of course, I'm gonna go ahead and use some mushroom powder. If you see my videos, you'll know that this will give me the umami punch. And then I'm gonna go in with some pepper. I like this dish to be quite peppery, so I'm gonna go in for about a teaspoon and a half of pepper. Of course, I'm gonna go in with some fish sauce, about a teaspoon and a half worth, and then some sugar to balance it out. I'm gonna start with a teaspoon. I'll adjust later if I need to. So I mixed it up and I gave it a taste, and I felt like it needed some water to kind of bring down the level of saltness a little. And then also it needed a little bit more sugar, so I'm gonna add a teaspoon to bump up the sweetness level. I'm adding in about a teaspoon of oyster sauce now because I forgot to add it in the beginning. And of course, I'm gonna go ahead and stir this up again. I'm gonna give it another taste, and then I'll adjust it again if I need to. Again, I thought I needed a little bit more water to bring down the saltiness level. So I added another teaspoon of water. So essentially, once I'm happy with the marinade, I'm gonna go ahead and dump in the beef, and I'm just gonna give it a good stir, make sure everything is coated, and make sure the beef is inside that marinade. So ideally, you want to leave the beef in the marinade for about an hour so that it can soak up all those delicious flavors. But if you don't have time, you can marinate for about half an hour, which I did, but at least an hour if you can to 3 or 4 hours. Alright, so let's get cooking. So I had a pan heated on medium to medium high heat, and I drizzle in a little bit of canola oil, and I'm gonna start cooking up my veggies. So the first thing I'm cooking are my onions. And I'm actually not looking for any color on these, and I'm not looking to cook them all the way through. I just want to cook them just when they get slightly soft. And this should only take about a minute or two. And as soon as the onions start to get soft, I'm going to go ahead and throw in my bell peppers. And just like the onions, I'm not looking to cook them all the way through because I want them to retain their crunch. So I'm going to toss it around in the pan and cook it for another 2 minutes or so, just to get it essentially warmed through. And like always, I'm gonna season this with some salt. And I'm just gonna cook this down for another minute or so. Again, I'm not trying to get this cooked all the way through. And as soon as my bell peppers start to get soft, I'm gonna go ahead and dump that on a plate on the side, and now it's time to cook the beef. So I'm gonna go ahead and return my pan onto the heat with a drizzle of canola oil, and I'm gonna get it smoking hot because I want my beef to sear. So if your pan's not smoking, don't throw your beef in yet because it will just steam, especially with that marinade. So the first thing I'm gonna do is throw in my garlic and cook that just for a few seconds. And as soon as it gets fragrant, I'm gonna go ahead and toss in my beef. I don't wanna cook the garlic too long because I don't want it to burn. So just until it gets fragrant. And as soon as I start smelling the garlic, I'm gonna go ahead and dump in the beef and try not to get too much of the marinade in there. So as soon as the beef is in the pan, I'm gonna get it into a single layer so that the steam can evaporate away and so that the beef can start searing. So I don't really want to flip the beef too much because I want to have a nice hard sear on the beef, just like you would with any steak. But after a minute or so, I am going to flip it so that the sugars in the sauce won't burn on that side of the beef. This cooking process should take about 3 to 4 minutes, so a few minutes on each side. Again, I don't want to cook it too long because A, I want to keep it medium rare, and B, the sauce can burn because of all the sugars in there. I know you see the bottom of the pan and you think that the sauce is burnt on there right now, but I would say it isn't, and it's just fond that's built up there. Because I will deglaze the pan with the leftover marinade that I watered down, and I'm going to use that and scrape it all up. And I'm going to make sure that I scrape every bit of that off the pan and incorporate it back into the sauce because that is flavor. So all of that goodness I'm scraping up is the soy sauce and the sugar that's been caramelized, and I'm going to add a nice caramelized flavor to the beef. So once I have the bottom of the pan scraped up and I have my beef cooked to my liking, I'm going to dump the vegetables back in and give them a quick toss, and just to get everything coated through. And once I have everything coated through and stirred through, just like this, it is time for the taste test. Man, look at this plate of food. Alright, so you see how I have it served up here? When you go to a Vietnamese restaurant and you order Bo Luc Lac, this is how it's normally plated up. You'll have like an upside down bowl of rice. I guess, that's how I would describe it. And then the shaking beef would be on a bed of lettuce. Sometimes they'll put bell pepper in, sometimes they won't, depends where you go. I like it with bell pepper just to get more vegetation in. But actually at home when my parents cook this for me, they serve it on top of watercress. And it's just the best thing ever because the juices of the beef and all that flavoring kind of seeps into the watercress and it kind of creates its own dressing. All right, enough of that. Let's taste this. Okay. All right. Let's do a piece of beef here. Cheers. Cheers. It's so good. This is a very nostalgic dish for me. So eating this, it just kind of takes me back to like my childhood. Getting this at restaurants and my parents cooking it at home for me sometimes. It's so good. Okay. So the beef, it's super tender. I wouldn't say like medium rare tender because, it's pretty small and I had to cook it with the sauce and stir fry it and try to get a nice crust on it. So it's not medium rare like most people would like it. But if you want it medium rare, you could cut it a little bigger. So that's up to you. I think it's perfect for me. And I'm using a ribeye cut anyways, so that beef is naturally already tender. Again, flavoring, the seasoning, it's on point. So this dish usually runs on the saltier side than sweet, but it's not overbearingly salty. If you get what I mean. Okay. So just give this dish a try. Let me know how it goes. And if you like this video, hit that like button. For more videos like this, hit the subscribe button or this button right here. And then you can hit this one right here for my previous video. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you. Bye.